This is Obabatunde from SWAT, and you're listening to Rave It Up. Why's taking you so long to get to us?
Hey guys, it's Lauren Yates from Rave It Up here, and today we're going to be having a chat over Zoom with Australian actor Takaya Honda, who you may remember playing Dr David Tanaka in the TV show Neighbours from 2016 to when the finale happened this year. We have a talk to him about his experience on Neighbours and also Play School, and we go back to the start to talk about how he found his love for acting, and also hear about some of the challenges he has faced in the Australian industry. He has so much advice to give you guys today, and we cover so many different topics. So let's get into it now. Before we get into today's interview, we would like to give a shout out to our Patreons, Irene, Bev, and Michael. If you haven't heard of Patreon before, it is a great way to support us and keep us running and improving. You pick a membership tier that suits you and your budget per month, and in return for supporting us, we'll give you behind-the-scenes content and free stuff. You don't have to give much either. You can be a part of our Patreons for as little as $4 a month. Just visit patreon.com/raveitup. You can even donate through PayPal if you don't trust other sites. You can do so just through our email, raveituptv@gmail.com. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. We appreciate anything you can do to support us. Now, let's get into this interview. Takaya, welcome to Rave It Up. It is a pleasure to have you on our show. How are you going today?
Well, thank you for having me. No, I'm going well. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, it's exciting to have you here. Now, since this is your first time on our show, we'd love to actually start from the beginning, if that's okay, to get a good idea of how you've made it to where you are today. When I was doing a little bit of research on you, I did read that both your parents coached gymnastics, so it kind of got me thinking, did you learn gymnastics too? Did you ever want to go down that path of life?
I don't think I ever wanted to go down the gymnastics path of life. But yeah, no, they were gymnastics coaches. My dad was the head coach at the AIS in Canberra. So it was pretty high up for women's artistic, and then they taught co-ed until I was about 10, and that's when I did it till. And then they were coaching at private girls' schools and ended up opening their own gym when I was in my late teens. So I coached a bit in that kind of thing, and I actually ended up playing a lot of baseball, so which I think the gym helps with. I tell every parent who's got a young kid to get them to do gym, not competitively, just for fun, because it helps in so many different areas, especially just knowing how to fall and not break bones. Not that I haven't broken bones, but that's because I was probably doing more extreme things than I should have. But yeah, no, it's physically it's a great start.
Are they still doing that to this day, or they kind of sold it all now?
No, well, Mum has early onset Alzheimer's, so because of that, they kind of had to not close down the gym. They're able to sell it and move up north, and because Dad had to help take care of her, and I was helping take care of her for quite a few years before they moved up to Brisbane. But yeah, that was kind of the reason they had to stop. Otherwise, they would have kept going. But in a sense, for Dad, it was a bit of a blessing in disguise, because it's allowed him to kind of enjoy life to a degree a bit more outside of the gym, because they were coaching 7 days a week pretty much my whole life. So gym is one of those sports that doesn't stop. There's no on or off season, because you can't physically, have to keep going.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about your mum. I didn't know about that.
It's like I'm a Dementia Australia ambassador as well for that reason, to try to create some positivity out of what is a pretty crappy situation.
Yeah, well, now I understand, because I was going to bring it up a bit later on, because I love talking about charities and foundations that people support and being an ambassador for, and now I understand. I was going to ask you why you got into that, but there you go. Don't have to ask that later on now. Now, with baseball, you weren't just doing baseball. You're like a part of 5 state championship winning baseball teams. That's incredible. So with doing that sort of thing and being obviously so damn good at it, did you want to go down the sports route?
Oh, look, it was definitely a possibility. I missed out on a certain team in Australia, and I was doing acting stuff at the time, and then that kind of changed courses because I was playing so much and training so much. I would have loved to go play college ball in the US and that kind of thing, more for the US college experience necessarily than potentially going to, the pro leagues and that kind of stuff. because yeah, I'm a hyper competitive person, so that sort of fuels that drive to train as hard as you need to, I guess. But yeah, it was. I think baseball being such a team sport as well, it's really helpful, I think, for people who get into acting if they are if they have done team sports when they're younger, because it's such a collaborative art form. It's probably the most collaborative art form out of any of them. So being able to work well with others, I think, is really helpful, and understanding that, you're as strong as your weakest link and that kind of stuff. So trying to lift up the people around you rather than pull them down and that kind of stuff is important to me, and any production that I'm on.
Yeah, I love that way of looking at it too. I would have just thought it would look really good on your resume because it just shows you're fit and active, right?
Well, I mean, that was a while ago. So no, yeah. Well, it does ingrain a certain level of fitness that you kind of want to maintain just because you're used to it.
Yeah, and that commitment of keeping it up all the time as well. I think that kind of carries on.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the commitment side of things, and the understanding that it takes a lot of practice and work to be good. You can't just sort of go out there and do it. And acting's a funny one because it's kind of hard to practice in a sense. You can, I guess, sit at home doing monologues, but without audience reaction, it's kind of hard to gauge whether you're doing a good job or not. So then it becomes, a paid event of going and then doing classes and stuff, and then depends who you're doing classes with. But then that's still only, once a week or whatever. So for an athlete, they can just go for a run every day and train particular skills. But for actors, we can work on our voice and keep our bodies in a good place. But it's quite kind of a difficult thing, and that's the advantage of doing something like Neighbours or Home and Away, or something that produces that much content, because you're able to exercise essentially every day at the craft, and you can only get better in doing that. So yeah.
Well, very, very true. And with acting as well, you kind of need to work off somebody too, don't you? You kind of need a cast member, co-star.
Well, that's right. Yeah. And coming back to that collaborative art form thing, you can dance on your own, but it's really hard to act on your own in that sense.
Definitely. Well, something I was also really surprised at reading was you did attend UNSW Art and Design and then transferred also to UTS for a Bachelor of Arts in Communication. Why communication? Was that like a little bit of what they call the plan B, just in case acting doesn't work out?
I've sort of changed my thinking around the whole plan B idea, because it's a thing that a lot of people say, especially in Australia, where if you're doing anything else, it becomes a plan B. But realistically, as an actor, I kind of look at it as like there's no plan B. It's just all building an empire.
Oh, I like that.
Because this idea of plan B is like you're either an actor or not, and if you're an actor who's out of work, then you're just struggling in general. But even as a working actor, the pay rates in Australia aren't huge. They're not the same as America, so we can't just book a single commercial and get 2 years pay out of it. We need another commercial in a couple of weeks usually. So so in that sense, like anyone who's then building anything else, working in any other direction, I think that's all additive to your career as an actor, because it's informed. You can learn so much from people in different environments. But coming back to the degree, well, it was majoring in media arts and production, so basically filmmaking. So still in the industry. That's also something that I am pursuing as well, in a sense, to direct and write and produce and that kind of stuff. So and we'll hopefully be doing more of that now that I have some more time being off Neighbours. So yeah, that's kind of where that degree came from. So I was still always going to be in the industry. But yeah, I had auditioned for NIDA and WAPA at that time. I got into the reserve list for NIDA, so I was 3 off getting in, and shortlisted another 2 years, I think. And then I booked a job, a Girls World, which was during the audition phase, called Chat Room Chicks, which made it feel really sus. Yeah, so I booked work, and then I came back from that. That was the first TV audition I did. Then I came back from that, and a week later I was auditioning for the film of Tomorrow When the War Began, and I was in the top 2 or 3 for that, and I was on hold for a few months. So I was kind of in this position where I was like, well, I'm getting work, or getting really close to it, off the first 2 auditions I've done, so I might as well just keep doing that. And then I did a bunch of theatre and stuff, and I was working with a lot of people who went to NIDA WAPA, and they said, look, you're here and you'll go up to here, but other people are going to come in down here and they're going to come up to you. So if you're working, I know plenty of NIDA and WAPA actors who are coming out and not really getting that much work. So I was just lucky in getting some traction. And once you've got it, you kind of want to keep moving on that momentum. so yeah, my focus changed from trying to get NIDA or WAPA training or any of those big schools, and started doing more short courses and working with one particular coach, especially Les Chantry, and then pushing harder in the direction I was going and try to keep maintaining that that momentum. And I was also helping take care of mum at that time as well, so I don't think I could have fit in a full-time acting course on top of it.
Yeah, of course. So with UTS, I'm guessing that was just shortly after graduating school, right?
Yeah, so
So
I did a year at COFA, which is a College of Fine Arts, which is attached to UNSW. And I just wasn't, I guess, being challenged enough there because it was more of a fine arts degree, I guess, being digital media. So it was kind of like, if I was good at writing essays or whatever. So if you could format an essay well, you were kind of getting good marks and that kind of thing. And not to put it down at all, because it's a great course, but yeah, I guess I wanted to be a bit more challenged. So then moved to UTS and did communications there. And that was great because UTS was the only university, at least at that time, that was doing any work where you could actually work with film too. So we shot, on 16 mil and manually edited and that kind of thing, which was a good thing to be a part of and to get a better understanding of all of that process, which is becoming less and less relevant, but I think it was helpful at that time. But also just in general to you then work harder to make sure that what you're shooting is right, rather than just shoot everything and then have heaps of stuff to do in post.
yeah, does that mean like afters, the school afters came a bit later on, I'm guessing?
No, it's
Still
just
in
that
television?
after the post-grad thing. So
Oh, okay.
you I guess you can do short courses and stuff, but it's generally you're doing it after you've done something else. So obviously after, so you can work with whatever you want there, but yeah.
Yeah. Wait, so how did you find your love for acting? Was it just at school? Because I did read that you're in Midsummer Night's Dream in Year 12 production, and it's amazing that you also went on to play that role for another 6 years. You've done so much Shakespeare. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. I think that just truly makes you an amazing actor. But was it just doing drama at school that you're like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
I had always loved performing. I sang a lot at school in choirs and musicals and that kind of thing as well. But it's kind of funny because I'd done so much sport as well, and I'd always kind of wanted mom or dad, or the idea of going and doing an audition for, because I had other friends at school who got a commercial or something, and I was like, oh my god, how do you do that kind of thing? But because I was so busy with sport, I didn't really have the time to do the agent thing and that kind of stuff. But my parents were coaching so much as well; they didn't really have time to be taking me to look at agents or get headshots and that kind of stuff. So it was always kind of this like dream off to the side. It didn't feel very real. But then I had a couple of amazing teachers at school who have now, moved away from school, and now Damien Ryan is the head of Sport for Joe Theatre Company and producing amazing theatre, which is a lot of the stuff that I'd done. And they kind of showed me the realities. They had been working actors themselves, understood the industry in Australia, and kind of showed the realities of what it was and how you actually be an actor and what the steps are involved in that. It wasn't just, I think a lot of the general public just see the glamour of, the A-lists or whatever, and just think that it's, you just find a role, you do it, and then you become big, rather than, no, you slog away at different auditions and wait till you finally get the right role comes across your table, and then you go from there. So they were really inspiring in that sense, and also gave my parents confidence as well, by just at like parent-teacher interviews and stuff, just saying that I had the talent to be able to do it, and that they should let me kind of pursue it. Not that they were ever against it or anything like that. They just wanted me to do something I'd be successful in and be happy in, that kind of thing. Because I think as you grow older, you understand especially in this industry, the difficulties and how rare it is to get success. But it's, it can happen. It's just you've got to be willing to put in the hard yards, really.
Absolutely. You really got to pay your dues, as they say. And this is a big reason I love doing these interviews, really hearing about these stories and getting a bit of a behind the scenes look that, there's heaps of people that look up to people like you, that are fans and are like, I want to do what he does. But it does take a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah, and you get a lot of messages as well asking, how, when Neighbours is around, how do I get on Neighbours and that kind of stuff? And it's like, can you help me get a role or something? And usually actors can't get anybody a role. If I could, Neighbours would have been full of my friends. Not that I didn't have friends on the show,
Yeah,
but
still anyway.
Every new role I'd get although I did know April beforehand, but that wasn't the reason she got cast. Yeah, no. So a lot of people do ask, how do you get into it? And in the reality of it is you've just got to do the work. You've got to act as much as you can, because it's not this thing where once I get on set, I'll be able to do it. You've got to be able to do it before you get there. And especially a soap that moves as fast as Neighbours does, you can't be figuring it out there. You have to have known what you're doing. And if it is your first gig, then you need to be doing the work at home where you can step on set and feel confident that you don't have to worry about lines, and you can absorb everything, because the biggest thing that happens with any, I guess, greener actor, even some of the experienced ones who aren't used to the speed that we would shoot at, they get the nods where a director will be giving direction and they'll be nodding, and you just know that nothing's going in, because at home they've practiced it in a certain way, and that's the way that they were wanting to do it. And then now these changes are coming, which is a lot of changes on the Neighbours set, that then they start to freak out, and they're trying to go back to, how do I make this work to what I was wanting to do, rather than, oh, this is where I am, this is who I'm talking to, this is what's unfolded and how it's changed, so then I can adapt. So that preparation is huge. So, but for any young actor, it's just go out there, do community theatre, do your school stuff, do short films that you can find, make your own stuff, understand the process on the other side is really helpful. So then just as simple as being on set and knowing what sort of lens they have on, and being able to go, okay, so now I'm in the close-up and stuff, without having to ask people or understand how they structure a basic scene, going from a wide to mids to close-ups, and knowing at what points in the script those things might happen. Then you can adjust your performance based off what that is too. So there's huge advantages to making your own stuff, because it gives you a great awareness as to why certain shots are being used and when they'll be used, which then can inform, especially on screen, your performance and how you then adjust for that.
Hey, you're going to be a great director, writer, producer. You're already sounding like one.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not, to be honest.
No, it's a very good thing. We love it. And, for the audience too, go check out Takaya's website too. I'll put the link below, because you put up heaps of tips and advice for people too. I loved that. Great.
Oh yeah, there is a thing I put up there with some tips and stuff. To be honest, I haven't updated my website for a little bit, so don't judge me if there's things that are out of date.
No, it's still really good advice. Priceless.
There is some acting tips thing in there. Yeah, but anyway.
That all sounds so stressful though. Like, how do you manage that personal, stressful environment when you got all those changes?
You just have to, and I guess that's the thing of doing it every day for so long. You get used to it, and it stops being stressful, and just the information you're using to do whatever you're doing is changing. So it stops being, oh my God, they've changed this thing, to like, oh, that's a change, cool. And then also, like with how I learn lines and stuff, that's one of the other questions everyone asks, like, how do you learn the lines? For me, it's about understanding what the character's saying and why they're saying it. Because if I understand that, then I can remember what I'm saying because I understand it, rather than just remembering each next word. So then if I get stuck on set, it's not that I'm going, oh, what's my next line? It's like, oh, what's the next thing I'm wanting to say? And that kind of becomes easier. But every actor works very differently. You've got to figure out what works for you in terms of learning lines. But what was I originally answering?
The stressful environment, but it sounds like it just turns into work, right?
Well, it does. And look, you can have moments where you where things you can get overwhelmed a little bit or whatever, but you just got to breathe and remember that why you're doing it. And for me, that's because I enjoy it and I love it and I have fun. So generally in those moments, or when a line's been tough or whatever, then I just have to breathe in between, cut and action, and remind myself, just have fun. And then usually it's okay. Because I think with acting, everyone who does it generally is doing it because they enjoy it and they love it. And I hope that that's the reason, because if they don't love it, then please don't do it.
Why are you there?
There's no job security. The money, you're going to struggle with money. There's so many reasons. It's tough in terms of knowing where you're going to be in a year and that kind of thing. So if you don't love it, please don't do it. Honestly, it's not worth it. but I keep going on tangents and then losing what my original train of thought is. But yeah, so
Love tangents.
yeah, well, it was a love tangent. So
Yes.
yeah, like you remember that you love it, and then you can keep going, and it makes it easier. Because you should be having fun doing it. And it's one of the things with auditions and that kind of stuff. People get really stressed out on auditions, and I'll admit I get stressed out on auditions. But again, it's an opportunity to act, and if you love doing it, then at least enjoy the 20 minutes or whatever that you are doing that audition. Because you are actually getting to play the character at that point. You're not auditioning to play the character. You are playing the character, and your version of the character, and the producers or whoever's doing the casting are going to pick the person who they think the character is. That doesn't mean you did it wrong. That doesn't mean your acting was bad. It just means that you weren't right for their version of what they wanted for the character. But your version still exists, and you might as well enjoy putting that forward as well. And have some fun with it. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. I've heard so many things about auditions, but that I think is the best one because it is true. You are playing the character. You're not auditioning for it. You are the character. I love that. Thank you. Amazing advice today, Takaya. Jeez.
Thank you.
Well, I want to go back to Neighbours in a minute, but before we do, I want to talk about in 2015, you became a presenter on Play School. So being an actor and a TV presenter, what do you prefer to do more? Is it probably the acting? You seem so passionate about it.
Acting for sure. Play School kind of came up. I got a presenter role on My Great Big Adventure, and I remember my agent calling me about that audition, and I was like, I don't really want to know. I don't know if I really want to go down the presenter path. And she pushed me and said, no, just do it. Because why not? And you're getting in front of this cast and Richard, blah, blah, blah. And so then I did it, and I got it, which was kind of weird for me, because I didn't think I would. But I was working with some amazing people like Kane Tramills and Steph Bennington, who was so experienced and had been on ABC for such a long time, both in Good Game, I think the game show that Steph was hosting, and Kane was one of the original ABC3 presenters. So it was great being around them and learning so much about how to present and also how to interview and that kind of stuff, and be able to read off people's energies and feel that. So it was a great experience. But the executive producer for that show was also the exec producer for Play School, and so she invited me to audition for Play School, and I think she really pushed me across the line, because I was auditioning for about 6 months for that. I had a couple of callbacks, and it was quite a long process. But so fortunate. Play School's the hardest thing I've done. People talk about Neighbours and the speed and stuff, but Play School's more difficult because it sounds improvised and kind of like there's a loose script, but every word is scripted perfectly. They have childhood development experts who help develop the script, and then they're in rehearsal with you. You have a 4-hour rehearsal per episode and 4-hour shoot for each episode. And so in the rehearsal, they hear us saying the script, and if it's not coming across the way they expected the words to come across, they'll go, can you change these words to this or that? Because then they understand that the kids will understand what you're saying in the way that they want that thing to be perceived. But when you're on set, then you have, you're doing really long takes. They used to shoot the whole show in one take. And live editing, and they still live edit, but because they're shooting digitally and not to film, they can cut at certain points. So when it goes to the windows or the clock, they'll usually have a cut there, and some directors will cut it even more than that. But because the piano is playing live, they generally want the singing, the takes to go as long as possible, so that piano is seamless throughout the whole thing. So then you're doing, like, you're dancing, you're singing, you're telling a story, you're doing voices, all in one long take. But at the same time, you have like props, and you've got a table, and you've got, little characters made out of toilet rolls and stuff. And toilet rolls are great, and they'll have a face painted on them, but you can't feel which way the face is. So you'll be talking to camera, you come across, and then you pick up the pieces, not knowing really which way they're facing. And you're self-monitoring, so you can see below where the cameras are. It's 3 camera shoot. You can see the monitors below, but the camera never wants to see you looking at it. So you have to, in your peripheral, see when the camera cuts to a close-up of them, so that then you can look down, adjust them to face the right direction, then look back up, and so they can cut back to you, and then you can keep telling the story and that kind of stuff. So there's that kind of thing that you're doing all at the same time, whilst being really calm, relaxed, delivering the story and playing the voices and all that kind of stuff. So technically it's a kind of a mammoth task, but it's all got to be really calm and easily delivered. So that's where it becomes really difficult. So yeah, Play School, amazing job to have, and hopefully I get to do a few more episodes. but yeah, it's a really difficult one, but one I'm so happy to be a part of.
Oh yeah, I've worked as a kids entertainer and still do every month or so, but at least I actually have kids to do it to. You don't. Like,
Yeah,
wow, that's difficult.
and the way it's described to us is that the camera is a quiet 5-year-old sitting at the back of the room.
Yeah.
It's not. I think that's why when you say play school, everyone smiles, because it's performed in a way where the singing's not amazing, the dancing's not amazing. It's not meant to be, and there's mistakes are allowed to happen, in that sense that rather than the kids up the front who are already dancing and stuff, oh look, I can do all this dance as well. It's for the kid up the back who doesn't think they can dance and doesn't think they can sing, who goes, oh, I can do that, and they might stand up and try and join in. And so it's so welcoming and comforting, and it's a lovely production to be a part of, and everyone in the room, from the boom operator to the producers and whoever else, is wanting to make the best show possible that kids will love the most, which is really nice to be, a wonderful environment to be a part of.
Wow, I love the show even more now. I'm like, wow, that's so beautiful. Well, let's chat some more about Neighbours as well, because you played David from 2016 to obviously just this year. And I know that probably a lot of people have spoken to you about this. I'm sure you're probably even sick of hearing about it. But playing an on-screen gay relationship with Matt, not actually being gay, how is that whole thing for you? It's so great that you got to represent the community on screen. And what did I read? You were like one of the longest running on-screen gay relationships, right?
Especially by episode count. I just sort of thought about that right towards the end, and I was like, there wouldn't be that many gay relationships that have been on screen that have gone for the length of time, for the amount of years. Yeah. There'd be like Modern Family and that kind of stuff, and quite a few seasons. So that would be quite high up on that list. But in terms of episode count, it's hundreds, we're probably the longest running in that. It doesn't really matter, but
and definitely Australian.
Yeah, definitely in Australia. But in terms of playing it, like I came onto the show without in the character brief, it said Dave was questioning his sexuality. So there was nothing definite about what his sexuality was at that point, whether it be gay, straight, or anything other. And in terms of playing the character as playing a gay guy, for me, it's something that you do get asked, and it's fun to get asked, but it's almost as though if it's just someone I'm not attracted to in a personal level. So whether he had been a conventionally unattractive woman, the same question is kind of not being asked. But as an actor, that's
true.
You're approaching it in the same way. It's like, well, I'm not drooling over you or anything. But Matt is a very pretty man.
So at least you got that right.
Yeah. But I'm not attracted to him sexually as a personal thing. So then it just becomes, well, no, but I know what love is, and I know what being attracted to someone is. And then it's just portraying that in the same that you do in any other piece of acting, or as I said, if it was a straight relationship, it was just something I wasn't attracted to. And that happens a lot in just watching the other actors on screen playing their relationships or whatever. They might be great friends or whatever, and generally they were, but for those who weren't attracted to each other, they still just had to do the job, and that's just what it is. But I think it's just a thing because it's outside of our sexualities that it raises a different kind of question. But to me, I kind of look at it in the same way.
Yeah, that's very deep though. I like that because, a lot of people might be looking at that going, oh, he's so lucky he gets to kiss Matt. Or, when you watch some of the other relationships, you're like, oh, so lucky. What an easy, fun part of the job. But it can actually be quite a difficult part of the job.
Whether attracted to them or not, they're the most complicated, especially during COVID. It was crazy. But no, I don't think, even if you're attracted, I think being on set in those moments, you have a whole lot of people watching you. It becomes quite technical, especially when the more like just kissing and stuff's kind of pretty fine. But when it goes further than that, it becomes about where the cameras are and the lighting, and also you got to get to in script and the lines, because especially on Neighbours, there's generally always some dialogue throughout anything. So yes. It's not just a sex scene that's being shown, but also knowing the other side where it is just a sex scene on a film or whatever. It's a lot of that, it becomes so technical, and you're generally just because it's quite a vulnerable place to be, just thinking about, where are my limbs going and where are their limbs going? And that's where actually intimacy coordinators, I think, is a brilliant introduction into making the actors comfortable, knowing exactly where their limbs are going to be,
Yeah.
and then building that trust. It was great for me and Matt because over such a long time, our trust level was so high that that stuff became really easy for us. Because ultimately, yeah, it does come down to a trust thing when you're doing that kind of thing as an actor.
Does it add a whole nother level of difficulty when you are actually already in a relationship, or for yourself, you're married? Like, is that even hard for your wife to look at?
Look, she probably was more comfortable that I was in a gay relationship on the show.
Than a straight one?
Yeah, we haven't really had to cross that boundary too much yet, so I'll see how it goes. No, but like for me, it's not. Because it's like, to me, it's just acting, and that's part of my job. And for
Yeah, of course.
me,
It's not
if I make
cheating.
her feel uncomfortable, then that's actually good for me, because she knows obviously how what I'm really like in those environments. So if she thinks that I'm giving someone that, then that means I'm doing my job well. You know what I mean? Because then what I'm doing is really believable. She's believing it. So, but it all comes down to trust, and her being able to trust that me as a person, and that I know where the lines are, and not to let them get blurry or cross them ever. And that's by making her feel comfortable and what's the word I'm looking for? Certain in our relationship, I guess, that
Yeah.
there's no need for me to go off and do other things, that, it's just part of the job. And well, she has to kind of get used to it if I'm going to keep doing it. So,
Yeah, she knew what she was getting
yeah.
into, right? When she married you.
Well, that's right. So,
Yeah.
but she's fine. And it doesn't bother me too much. It's just there's much harder things than having to pull off kissing someone or whatever. They can be difficult and awkward, but especially when you've met them that day and it's the only scene you have with them. But yeah, there's way harder things that pull my focus than that stuff.
So sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's fun. A little bit of both.
Yeah,
What is
it
your
can be fun too. I mean, like
Yeah, exactly. Especially
there's no
when you're
harm
with
in that.
someone
But
that Matt's nearly like your best friend now, isn't he? You got that amazing relationship. What's your favorite part about being on that show? Or I should say was your favorite part about being on that show?
talking in past tense.
I know. I'm kind of in denial. No, it's not over.
The people really, the cast obviously is great, and I'm good friends with them, but also so much of the crew were wonderful, and they'd been there such a long time. And it's a very unique set in the sense that people know each other much better. I mean, you go onto other shows or whatever, generally there is a bit more of a divide between cast and crew in most areas, but here, whether it be a grip, a script supervisor, the director or producer, the personal relationships are all quite strong. So, which can mean that, like, in certain points, because obviously the Neighbours, there's a lot of two-hander scenes which is just two people and you're just recapping the previous episode or whatever, and the crew will be giving you crap during it or whatever, but it's all out of love. And but they would also then, when scenes were more intimate and you need to be more vulnerable, they would also then show a lot of respect too, and would be helping you out because they wanted you to look the best you could as well. So yeah, definitely the people. It was such an amazing environment to meet people in, because it was a very difficult thing to shoot because of the speed and the amount of content we had to produce. It meant that you could form really strong relationships, which was really nice. And obviously then just getting to act every day is wonderful, and get paid for it is really good. So
To be
yeah, I mean,
around, or like the people that are your friends now. Like, what an amazing can I even still call it a job? What a great work environment.
well, yeah, I as much as possible try with any acting thing not to say that I've got work on Monday or whatever.
Yeah.
It always becomes I'm acting on that day, or I'm on set, or because I don't like to think of it as work. There's definitely work aspects to it. I mean, learning lines is still learning lines, and that's always something that I think most people are like, okay. And learning the amount of content we had to learn, that it's your brain definitely takes a
Right.
toll from it. Yeah, there's about around the 7th week of each term, because we shot kind of like school terms. You could see everyone's brains sort of start to tweak a little bit, because they were just getting tired and going, I don't want to do this anymore. Like their brains were, because you're just remembering so much content. But learning to be able to push through that, it does. People talk about it as an amazing training ground, and that's really what it's amazing for, because you can step onto any set and nothing is too stressful. Any change of line isn't going to throw you, and or anything else really, because you have to kind of do everything except to do it faster than anywhere else you would. So every other set you step on is a luxury, in comparison.
Yeah. And 6 years is a really long time too. How did you keep it fresh and interesting for yourself every time you were on set, instead of, getting complacent, maybe a bit bored or lazy?
I think it comes down to loving acting again, and every time stepping on set, just loving it. Of course, there's hard bits around that. And the time goes fast. And I may not have stayed as long had it not been for COVID. It would have been silly to leave the show off my own back during the middle of COVID, when I was so fortunate to have work. It would be silly to be rejecting that at that time. So I was really lucky that we kept shooting. And I think everyone on set would agree the same thing. So that's part of the reason why I stayed. But also, if you've got that passion and that love, then you're constantly given new challenges, because you've got different scenarios and scenes, and you're growing with your character. It's not like you're in the, and it's not even a fair comparison, but if you're doing a play for 6 years and doing that 43 weeks of the year, then maybe you would get bored. But even with plays, each night you can find something new, hear something differently, discover in the final show that I've been saying that line wrong every single time this whole run. But we have the fortune on something like Neighbours where the scenario is completely changing. And for me, what kept me interested was part of the difficulty is what kind of made it interesting, because often how the show is made is that they come up with a story and they have the characters that are going to be the main part of that story, and then they slot in other characters just where they need them functionally for that story to work, which at times meant that your character would be forced into a position which you probably wouldn't think that they would do. They wouldn't go and do whatever it is, or say that to this person, or talk about someone that way. So part of the challenge then, and part of the interest, became, how do I solve that problem so that I can make it, or say it, or do that thing in a way that was true to my character and reflects everything else that character has been through and done, so that the audience doesn't lose faith in knowing who that character was. And for me, I was really lucky, I feel, and partly through my own drive, but much credit to the writing team and the producers, that my arc from when I started to when I finished was complete. I pushed hard so that he didn't go into a position where the audience would go, I didn't think David would ever do that, except that he let someone die. But that was in a position where it was almost impossible to make a choice, and you could understand and come from and go into that situation from a David perspective. And that's kind of the thing, like if I was a different character going to that, they would have reacted very differently. So I guess the best thing, this is going off again another tangent, the best thing about playing a role for that long is that you've played the whole backstory. You're not having to come into a role, go, oh, all of these things have happened in the past, this character, and you've got to imagine what they were and how that made them feel and how that then impacts on the lines that you're saying. It's like, no, I've done all of it. So now all of that subtext and stuff can play out kind of effortlessly, because it's just ingrained in your body. There were times when you go, am I acting anymore, or
have I become this person?
am I just saying the lines the way I would say them? And it was actually helpful because I was shooting the family law concurrently with Neighbours, so being able to go onto that set and play a different character, I was like, oh no, I am doing something different. Cool. It's just become so second nature to step into David for me, that it became kind of easy. I didn't have to really think about it so much. It became more about, what objective I was trying to get in the scene, or what he was trying to get, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. What was your question again?
I can't even remember either. It was about how to keep it fresh and interesting, but I think you pretty
Well,
much
that's
answered
kind
that
of it.
now.
Yeah. I think my passion comes across in how much I keep talking about it. So
No, I
that's
love
kind of how I
it.
keep it interesting.
It must be so sad to see it all go, and I actually cried in the finale too. I'm like, oh, to see it like after so many years watching it and growing up with it, I'm like, oh. Anyway, is it hard now to kind of figure out what you're going to do after that, after 6 years, knowing where your work is every day? Sorry, not work, where you're going to be on set every day? To now, wow, I've got the world is my oyster now, right?
I mean, like you said, it's both in that sense. It's both like, oh, okay, now I don't have a paycheck coming in nearly every week, and I'm not getting to play on set every day. But at the same time, the opportunities now are, the world has opened, and
And you create your own too as you go along, don't you? Kind of have to.
yeah. So it's like I'm really excited about the opportunities that are in front of me. And one of the other advantages of doing something like Neighbours is then you start to know more people in different positions in the industry, and then you can call them and have a meeting pretty easily. Your access to things becomes great. So it's a matter of utilizing them at the right times as well. And hopefully that leads to more and bigger things. And I think getting onto the behind the camera stuff as well can be great, because as an actor, you can never control your schedule, but you can a little bit if you're on the other side. So, it's being able to take advantage of everything that you've ever done, whether it be actual acting work or other, and draw on those experiences, whether it be on set or for producing something or whatever it is. But you want to take in everything you do and use it as best you can, because at the end of the day, we are playing human beings and we meet other human beings, and we play different versions of ourselves with different people that we meet, whether that be our family, our friends, or random on the street. We play different people all the time. So getting used to that and jumping into that is, it's all good. I don't know. I can rant forever about
as long as you
so.
keep loving what you do. That's the most important part in life.
Absolutely.
Find the passion. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And speaking of the future too, can we expect from some more TAC talks? I loved those interviews.
Thank you. Yes, I'm trying to reframe it a little bit, and figure out a different way to do it, in a sense, because obviously there's a lot of people like yourself doing interviews like this, and which are all great and really interesting. And obviously the people I'm talking to generally are actors that I've worked with and that kind of stuff. So there's a familiarity which helps, because they're it makes it easier for them to be more vulnerable or whatever, and make them tell funny stories. But I'm just trying to think of whether there's a different way I want to try to do it, as opposed to a straight Zoom interview, or whether I want to add a different layer to it. And obviously that adds greater complexity to actually getting it made. But I do really enjoy it. But it's I'm sure you understand the producing side of it is there's a lot of there's a lot to it. So I know I do want it to come back in some way. I just there's been a lot of things I've been having to try to catch up on since we finished the show, because you basically have no time to do life stuff while you're filming. So there's a lot of that I'm catching up on, and that's one of the things where I'm letting it sort of stew in the background, and with a lot of my creative endeavors, I kind of don't try to force it too much and try to let it the answer come, because it'll make sense when it makes sense. But I don't want to just jump in and start doing what I was doing before and then realize later on, that's actually the way I would like to have done it. But it may come back in the same way. It may end up being that. But yeah, I'm just waiting for the thing that tells me that it feels right, and then I'll pull the trigger in that sense.
Well, I look forward to it, and good luck with everything in the future. I know you're so talented. You'll be getting all the jobs out there.
Thanks. We'll see.
You got a fan in me anyway.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'd love to have you on again in the future, whenever you maybe do some more TAC talks or whatever ends up happening.
For sure, yeah. I'd be happy to.
Well, I know we've already been speaking for 45 minutes. How quickly has that gone, right?
Yeah.
Before we finish up today, though, would you like to play a game with me? There's a bit of a competitive element, and I've actually had a few of your Neighbours co-stars on, and maybe you can try and beat them.
Okay, sure.
You're like, now I
probably will
have
lose,
to.
but we'll see. I don't know what it is yet. Oh, no.
But we had Ben Turland on, Alan Fletcher, Rob Mills, and I'm hoping to have Charlotte Chimes on, so maybe you can set the bar nice and high for her too. It's a legendary game here on Rave It Up. It's called the 2-minute hot seat. And all I do is I ask you various questions. You just have to pick your preference. So it's like dogs or cats or singing or dancing.
How do you win this then?
You have to answer as many questions in 2 minutes as possible. And then when you finish, we'll see where you sit on the leaderboard up against everyone else that's played the game on the show.
Okay, cool. All right.
So to give you a bit of an idea, like Ben Turlin, he answered 38 questions and is
good.
sitting 18 out of Zoom interviews, 50 on the whole Rave It Up leaderboard. Alan Fletcher, 57 questions. He knocked
quick.
Ben out of the park.
He's quick.
And he's Alan Fletcher's the same spot as Rob Mills. So
Ooh.
yeah.
Millsy talks quickly as well, so.
Yes, he does. So 57 questions. Let's try and beat that, shall we?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Here we go.
All right, let me get my little stopwatch out. All right, and I will change the view on the camera so I can see us both. There we go. All right, are you ready, Takaya?
Yes.
As ready as you'll ever be, right? It's a great way for the fans to get to know you a little bit better too. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Facebook or Instagram?
Insta.
iPhone or Samsung?
iPhone.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
Rap or rock music?
Rap.
Rock or pop?
Pop.
Pop or country?
Pop.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Beach or pool?
Beach.
Skiing or snowboarding?
Snowboarding.
Comedy or action?
Comedy.
Blondes or brunettes?
Blondes.
Sweet or salty?
Sweet.
Sunglasses or hat?
Sunglasses.
SUV or convertible?
SUV.
Mac or PC?
Mac.
PlayStation or Wii?
PlayStation.
Singing or dancing?
Singing.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Italian or Chinese food?
Chinese.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Kim Kardashian or Scarlett Johansson?
Scarlet.
Johnny Depp or Will Smith?
Johnny.
Mall or online shopping?
Online.
Cinema or home movie?
Cinema.
Ice cream or gelato?
Gelato.
Cake or cookies?
Cookies.
Cookies or cookie dough?
Cookies.
Family or friends?
Family.
Football or soccer?
They're the same thing. Soccer.
Christmas or your birthday?
Christmas.
Night or day?
Night.
Bus or train?
Train.
Straight or curly hair?
Straight.
Eye color blue or brown?
Blue.
Vampire or werewolf?
Vampire.
Texting or calling?
Texting.
Sydney or Melbourne?
Sydney.
Friday or Saturday?
Friday.
TV or movies?
TV.
Starbucks or Gloria Jeans?
Gloria Jeans.
Snow or surf?
Surf.
Harry Potter or Twilight?
Harry Potter.
Family Guy or The Simpsons?
Ooh, Simpsons.
McDonald's or Hungry Jack's?
Hungry Jacks.
Red Rooster or KFC?
KFC.
French fries or chips?
French fries.
Burger or hot dog?
Burger.
Pies or sausage rolls?
Sausage roll.
Tomato sauce or barbecue sauce?
Tomato.
Guitar or drums?
Guitar.
Sneakers or thongs?
Thongs.
Bike or scooter?
Bike.
Leather or denim?
Denim.
And we're out of time! You're getting fast at the end there. I was like, oh, gotta keep up. How many questions do you think you answered in that time?
One more than Ben Turland.
Well, so Ben answered 38 questions.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say you beat him out of the park.
Oh, that's good.
Now, Alan Fletcher, 57 questions. Do we
That's a lot.
think
That's a
we
lot.
beat that?
I don't know. There's a couple there where I was like, well, this is either or. But
I
yeah.
was surprised at Sydney or Melbourne when you said Sydney. I was like, yeah.
Well, because I'm from Sydney. So I grew up in Sydney.
Ah, okay. Are you still in Sydney? Or are you
No.
living-
I had to move to Melbourne, and then my wife loves her job here. So
Yeah.
we'll stay here for at least for the short, medium term. So
Well, let me know if you ever come back to Sydney, all right? That's where I am.
I will.
So, 57 questions. You didn't exactly beat him, but that's okay. You beat Ben Tolan. That's really good. You answered 53 questions.
Okay.
So if we sped up a little bit, we might have gotten there.
I'm telling you're reading the questions too slow. That's
yeah, it's totally my fault.
No.
I pretty much like memorized nearly this whole list. I can just say it.
How many's on the list?
Looking.
Has anyone finished it?
No, not yet. Like the top of the leaderboard in person was 101 questions. And yeah, that was a lot. That was her second time. I gave her a mixed version, but she still smashed it out of the park. And I'm glad she didn't answer any more than that because I have 131 questions on the list. I haven't got anyone to hit that yet.
More than 2 a second, which is quick. Oh no, 1 a second, just more than 1 a second. I'm assuming she was answering them before you're finishing them to get 101, but yeah.
Yeah, I was starting to think, is she just saying whatever I say last, like, or the first one? I'm like, that's not
that's what I should have done.
Well, that was so much fun. As I said, a great way for the fans to get to know you a little bit better as well. Now, we are unfortunately getting to the end of the interview now, Takaya, but as a closing statement, and was probably the most important question here on Rave It Up, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your 14-year-old self?
I would tell them, if something's going to be fun, just do it.
Oh, I love that. A life full of fun, right?
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, I thought that's the only way to live, right?
As long as it's not, harming at the loss of somebody else or something. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's a great way to live, isn't it, Takaya? Well, before we go, if our audience want to contact you or find out what you're up to in the future, where should we go? Where should we go follow you?
I'm on Insta as Takaya H, so Takayah. A lot of people think the H is part of my first name, but it's not. It's for Honda, which is my last name. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter as well. Any of the others? And I'm on TikTok, but I don't actually use it, so don't try to contact me there. If you want to, you most likely get a response message-wise on Insta, because there's only so many message platforms I can go through, which I try to clear every now and then. But yeah, otherwise comments and stuff I'll try to get to as well. So any of those, come follow. And
your website, right? takayahonda.com for everybody.
Yes, that's there too.
Even though he hasn't updated it for a while, he's still got some good advice up there.
Yeah, check out the action tips up there, and there's a lot of good links and resources I think I've put in there as well, which may have even better advice. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your advice today, or the current advice, and thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you.
No, well, hopefully you can come back on the show in the future, all right? So just consider it your second home, and you can come back to chat about anything. I'll be happy to.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Takaya. Well, I hope you all enjoyed today's interview. If you'd like to check out any of our other interviews, please visit our website, raveituptv.com. All of the podcasts and videos are there for you to enjoy. And while you're there, please also check out our book, Knowing What I Know Now, as well as a mini ebook that I wrote last year called Staying Strong, Finding Inner Peace During Hard Times. And if you'd like to further support us here at Rave It Up, please also visit patreon.com/Rave It Up. You can pick a membership tier that works with you and your budget for as little as $4 a month. It's like a coffee, right, guys? And in return, you get free stuff and bonus content at Rave It Up. Who wouldn't want that, right? So please spread the word with your friends, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.